hope your evening is starting out real cool, because mine totally is. 5:20 p.m., 12th of February. Valentine people are getting ready to celebrate love and make us feel like we have vegetables and spoons. It's fine. It's fine. Enjoy your Valentine preparation. Make sure that your boo doesn't have another boo that is not you. And welcome to Lifestyle 360 again. And let's get into the conversation now. Oftentimes when people hear about debt actually, they freak out. Personally, I have PTSD for debt. The person who is our guest today happens to know why. I think we've kind of done this journey together side by side for a bit. But I do have PTSD for debt. And in a country like Nigeria, where we have people that will, create flyers of your fake obituary, or say you're a kidnapper, or someone that has HIV, just to shame you into paying. We have a terrible debt culture in Nigeria as individuals and even as a country. So it's very important. I and the team sat down and said, what will we gift these people this Valentine's season? Let's teach you how to use your debt. Let's teach you how to use debt, because you live in a country like Nigeria and you see how people treat debt, and you now go online and you see other people from other climes saying, like, no, that in the outside country, rich people use debt. You use their money, not your money. And you're like, the same debt that we are dealing with. What did you were talking about? So that's basically what today's conversation is about. With me in the studio, Sarah Samuel Amana. Now, this woman is very dear to my heart. Not the first time she's coming into the house. Absolutely gorgeous. She has a gorgeous face and a gorgeous brain, or more gorgeous brain if you ask me. She is also known as Rich Auntie Finance. And I must say, the first time I heard that was the name of your, startup, I was like, yeah, Rich Auntie. Who names themselves that? And then, you sit down with her and have a conversation, and you find out that she is she's a financial literacy expert, and she's a core member of the Forbes Black community. It's a thing of pride. She's a co-member. Rich Auntie Finance Limited is basically a finance education lending service company, and they don't just give you money, they teach you how to use it, and they make sure their money comes back. And we're going to be having a conversation about all of that. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Happy New Year. It's good to be back.
When I hit her up, I was like, what are we doing this thing again now? Because, you're like this deep well of financial knowledge, and every time I have an opportunity to tap from it, I'm like, oh yeah, bring whatever you have. All right, let's talk about debt. Yeah. Generally, I would have said what is debt, but I feel like that's very basic. Let's just talk about your understanding of what it is versus the myths versus the facts. Some of the things people think debt is and what debt actually is.
Okay, thank you for having me. It's always good to be here.
Meanwhile, you have a Val, right? I'm asking everybody because the fact that does your husband have he asked you?
I'm saying,
did he say, will you be my Val?
Is that it? He hasn't asked though.
You don't have a Val. Yes, Mr. Amana, come and catch me in the studio. Either ask her or we'll find somebody that will.
I'll be you.
All right, let's get into the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so debt. In this part of the world, when you say debt, it's like, God forbid, I'm not going to be in debt. I don't want to be in debt and all that. But it all depends on perception and how you use it. So debt is a two-edged sword. So you can use both ways. You can use the sword in both ways. And it depends on what you use it for. So that's the first thing. So the myth around debt is that it is a bad thing. But the truth is, debt is good and is bad.
It can be good, it can be bad.
Yes, so there's the good debt and then there's the bad debt. So good debt is when the money you borrowed brings in money back into your pocket. So it's an investment into your future. But bad debt is the one you use to buy chicken, suya.
Why would anybody borrow to buy chicken and suya and pizza?
People do that. You'll be amazed. People borrow for their stomach. People borrow to buy food.
I remember one time, I think it was on either your podcast or on your Instagram, you said borrowing is like borrowing to eat is like spending money you haven't gotten yet.
Good. And then you have people borrow to impress other people. That's like the biggest one for us here. People borrow to impress other people who don't even know you exist and don't even care. And even if they do, why would you do that? The only time you should borrow is when it is an investment. It is bringing something back into your pocket. That is, so those are the two
types of debt.
Yes, so you have the good debt and then the bad debt.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Okay, got that. Now let's talk about let's talk about the good debt for now. That's basically what I want this conversation to be about. Y'all don't go borrowing to impress nobody, okay? You'd end up with a lot of HBP. All right, so how do you leverage debt wisely? Like, how, run me through, I want to do something better for my life now. How do I get, indebted and then not get in trouble after borrowing?
Okay, good. So now that's the thing. Understanding why you want to borrow. That's the first thing. If you understand why you want to borrow, then you can now determine whether it's good or bad. So the most essential thing is making sound financial decisions that will help your future, that would help you become richer in future, not the one that will now make you poorer. The thing with bad debt is it frustrates you, it stresses the life out of you, and then you just keep regretting the choices you make. But the thing with good debt is you are now happy, you're using it for something good. So back to your question, how do you leverage good debt? And that is the word, leverage. When it comes to the world of finance, that word leverage is a very, very strong word. It's something that changes the whole ball game altogether. So how do you leverage it? The unfortunate thing is that, let's leave that. But how do you leverage it?
I want to hear. You see, now that's the problem. What is the unfortunate thing?
No. Let me not break your heart.
Okay.
But if you want to leverage debt, good debt, the best way to do it is to start a business.
So it's okay to borrow to start a business?
Very well. What do you think Dangote is doing? He built his refinery. He didn't build it with his money. He rolled out something they call the Dangote bonds. Do you know what that is?
Tell me.
He borrowed money from people to build that refinery. That's what it means. And guess what? After the refinery is up and running, he begins to pay back small. So I'm just trying to break this down. People understand what it is. He actually borrowed those monies to build his refinery. And after building the refinery, he would give them time. He would tell you it's a 10-year bond. That means he borrowed the money for 10 years at 10% every year. So at 10% interest rate every year means that every year he pays you 10%. Let's say he borrowed 10 million naira from you. Every year he gives you 10%. 10% is 1 million naira.
So is it 10% on the money borrowed, on the principal?
Yes, on the capital.
So if I'm taking a 10 million naira loan, and I'm paying a 10% yearly, so every year I'll pay 1 million as the principal,
as the interest.
Then how much am I paying on the loan?
No, you're not paying anything on the principal yet. So at the end of the 10 years, he pays you the principal and the capital. That's how it works. Okay, so
1 million every year for 10 years.
Yes.
And then at the end of 10 years,
he pays you the 10 million and the 1 million naira.
So 11 million.
Oh. But imagine, okay, so 10 times 1 million naira times,
so they've made
10 years. Yeah. No, more than. Yeah. So
they've made another 10. They've done 100%.
So, exactly.
Okay, because I know that you are a loan financier, I would want to ask you this.
Okay.
How are you certain you can recoup in that 10 years? Because anything can happen in 10 years. He could die, God forbid it. But death is part of, he could go bankrupt. The business could fail.
Yes, but guess what? The business is not, he's not running the business by himself. It's a company, it's an entity. They have board of directors, they have structure. So that's the thing. So that brings you back to investment. When you're investing, those are the things you check. Who is the founder of the company? Who are his board of directors? how is the company being run, what are the morals, what are the values behind the company, what is the structure behind the company. Even if Dangote dies today, the company is not going down. It's not going down because he died. It's the same with may his soul rest in peace, the Access Bank CEO who died today. Access Bank is not going to go down because exactly, especially if they have good management. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So back to your question, nothing is going to happen. So even after, so it's important. So now we're talking from the point of investment now. So nothing will happen to your funds if the owner or the founder of the company goes down.
That's about that. Now, besides investment, what are the other things people, I know people can borrow for
investment. They can borrow for business. They can borrow for education.
Exactly. Yes. Let's talk about education and health. I know people get into debt because of health concerns. Say someone is really ill and they're like, okay, we just need to get this money. Let's borrow. You're not. You're shaking your head
because you're not supposed to borrow for that. That's why you should have health insurance. Insurance is very, very important. But in this part of the world, we don't believe in it. But it's very. We always think. For those
while we're on health insurance, right? Like, let me throw in a fun fact. I think last week or the week before, we had a guest who came in here and said, it's now mandated by government that every individual over the age of 18 has health insurance. Good. So if you don't have health insurance and you're listening to me now, better hurry up and go and get one at the NHIA or anywhere else, because if you don't have one, you can be arrested. You're going to pay a fine or something. It's a civil offense for you to not have health insurance. And of course, besides that, I mean, nobody has the drum in your head. It's a wise financial decision according to our guest. So go ahead.
Yeah. So
don't borrow for health reasons.
Don't borrow for health reasons. The reason why. You should always be prepared. That's the thing with about finance or about life in general. That's why you should have emergency funds. That's why you should have insurance. So once you have health insurance, it covers a level of expenses. So let me give you a life example now. There's someone I know personally. She was ill for a while, and then her total bill was about 13 million. But because she had health insurance, she was only charged 350,000.
Sorry, say that like into the mic so we know. Like, she was only charged what?
350,000
out of 13 million.
Yes.
So that is about 1%.
Exactly.
That is about 1% of her entire bill.
Yes. So that's the thing people don't understand about insurance.
NHIA is supposed to come and be paying us because
free advert. I'm telling you. So you're not supposed to borrow for your health because it's something you're supposed to have prepared for. It's not like we're wishing that something will happen, but somehow things like that come up unexpected. You're not the owner of life. I know we pray, yes, God forbid it shouldn't happen, but somehow it does. It does. So it's best you're prepared for it before it happens. So having health insurance is very, very important, so you don't run into selling off your properties to cater for your health, borrowing here and there. So it solves the issue completely.
All right. So now, I would like, before you answer the initial question, I'd like you to now tell us what are the things that you're advised to borrow for so that you are not getting bad debt.
Okay. So you're advised to borrow for investment. And guess what? Let me make it very clear now that I should borrow for investment. No. So let me make it very clear now. Yes, if you have an investment, there's an investment opportunity, because the thing with why people run into debt is liquidity. Cash is king anytime, any day. So people borrow because at that point in time, they don't have money. For some people, they don't have money to carry out or to grab the opportunity at hand. They don't have money to grab the opportunity at hand, right? So you can borrow for investment purpose. But guess what? This is the catch now. If you're borrowing, you have to understand first, what are the terms and conditions of the loan you're borrowing? What is the interest rate? And you should always have a repayment plan. Some people jump into borrowing before having a repayment plan. Good. So you should have all that in place. Then we talk about the interest. If you're borrowing money, let's say you're borrowing 10 million naira. Let's still use the 10 million naira. You're borrowing 10 million naira for an investment. Yes,
it's a very decent figure.
Yes. So let's say you're borrowing 10 million naira for an investment, and the return on investment for that 10 million naira is 10%, and the interest rate you are paying on that loan that you borrow that you want to use for this investment is 15%. Is mission abort mission. Why? Because the interest rate is much more than the return on investment you're going to get. If the return on investment is 10% and your the interest rate on the loan you're collecting is 15%, abort mission.
You mentioned interest rates, and I really don't want.
Yes.
Okay, finish. I'm very about this subject.
So that is, if you do that, if the interest rate for your loan is 15% and the return on investment is 10%, if you collect it, you're automatically getting into bad debt. It's automatic. That is bad debt. But if the interest on your loan is 5% and the return on investment is 10%, then you can borrow. Why? Because you still have 5%. You give them, they give you 10%, you pay back the interest, which is 5%, and you still have 5%. So debt is anything, good debt is anything that brings back profit or interest or gain or wealth into your pocket.
Let's talk before we get into percentages, because I was really going to jump into that. But there are short-term loans and there are long-term loans.
Yes.
Break down the difference in that for us.
So it depends. These things, it depends on context. A short-term loan could be 6 months, 3 months, 1 year for some people. Long-term loan, you're looking at 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. Things like mortgage loans. You can take advantage of mortgage loans for good debt. You can do that. So those are long-term loans because you have 30 years to pay back. And then the interest rate is very minimal. Sometimes 1%, sometimes 2%, depending. So that's the difference.
All right. Now, percentages, interest rates. That's where I have a problem. Because how much interest is too much interest? I have a mentor that would tell me anything that is 2 figures, anything more than one digit is too much for an interest. But what would you say is a good interest rate that someone should be looking to? And now I'm talking the average Nigerian now, given the economy of the country. How much would you say is?
Okay, so how much would you say is good interest?
It's a good interest. How much would you say? Yes, a decent is the word. A decent interest, as opposed to this interest like this
is too much.
I've heard of 18%.
Okay, before. So what you would do is use low risk investments, things like treasury bills, bonds. So for treasury bills is around 14%, which is good. So we are using like the economic indicators now. 14% is good. 20% for some is good. Then you have per annum, not per month or per hour. That's the difference. Per payment plans, repayment plans. You'd hear some people say, if you're taking a loan for 6 months or for 1 year. Are we talking about loan now, or we're talking about interest?
No, we're talking about interest rates on loans.
On loans. Oh, is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
no, 20% is too much.
We're still in the debt circle.
No, 20% is too much. No. So when you look at loans, for loans, the decent rate is usually between 5% to 10%.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yes. Yes.
I've seen 18. I've seen 15. 15 is very common in Nigeria. Where do you find accessible loans? Because if I say where do you find loans, they'll say go to your bank. But I'm talking accessible loans. Where do you find accessible loans in Nigeria? How realistic is it to find an accessible loan that would have that between 5 to 10%?
Yes, you can. Banks do.
Accessible loans.
You have the fintech apps now.
No.
You have the fintech apps.
I was hoping we were going to say fintech apps. I was hoping we were going to go there because a lot of people got into depression. I personally, Sarah, you know that we know people that got into a lot of
But it's not
trouble.
because of the interest rate. It's because they did not have a payment plan.
Most of this,
people go in to collect these loans from these loan apps because most times it is free money. It's easy to get. That is why they do it. So without plans on how do I pay back, that's why I said it's important first before getting a loan. How much is the interest rate? What are your plans? What plans do you have to repay that loan? You have to check how much am I earning, how much am I collecting as loan, and the rule is to use the 30% rule. The 30% rule when it comes to debt or borrowing. That is the rule to use.
So 30% of your income.
So yes, whatever you're paying as interest to any loan or servicing any loan should not be more than 30% of your income. So 30% of your income can go into servicing loan, and then the remaining 70% can go into savings, investments, and the rest of them. So once you get a loan and is above 30% of your income, you're in trouble.
I have no idea how time decided to flee, because we have like 4 minutes to do this, and I think the most important question I don't want to miss is, how do you when deciding to use debt,
Yes.
to get in debt, to how do you decide the backup? How is it? I know it's advisable to get a backup plan. Sorry, I'm trying to pick the most important, because I do have what strategy can you put in place to be like, I know you already mentioned it has to be like 30%. What I need at the time to deal with that particular need, I don't have all of that. How am I able to get, to a place where I'm like, this is my strategy for paying back? How would you say this is a strategy? This is a very good payment
Strategy.
Yes. Repayment, yes.
Okay. So there's something we call, but that's for those who are already in debt and then you're trying to figure out how to
get out of it. That's what I'm
that's
saying.
the question.
Yeah, you're already in debt
and
I'm overwhelmed by it.
And
I'm trying to get out of it.
Good.
How do I
so
get out of it?
So the first thing, one method you can use, I'll just talk about one. One method you can use is to pay the high interest debt first. Why is it important to pay the one with the highest interest? Maybe you have so many debts on your head, so pay the one with the highest interest, because it keeps accumulating and it will hinder you from paying off the remaining ones. So pay the high interest debt first. By the time you've sorted out that one, then you can go to the next one. Or another strategy you can use is call the people that you are owing. Explain to them. Most people are humans. They will understand with you. Call them. Even loan apps, let me tell you, once you tell them that, give me time, I'm going to pay so and so date, or break it down for me into a repayment plan, they do. But most people don't even know. Just let them know that this is how much I have to pay now. Can I pay? They will collect it.
They need it.
Yes. So small like that, you can keep paying. And then one thing I mentioned again is call your debtors. Tell them this is my situation. Sometimes be vulnerable. I collected this money. I was thinking I was going to be able to pay at so and so time, but it's not working. Give me more time. But some people borrow and they blank out on you. Never calling. You keep calling them. They are not answering and all that. So call before time. Call. Tell the person, okay, I can't afford to pay now. Give me 6 months extra, and then I will pay this and this. It helps. Most times, I'm telling you, it works out. I've had people come to me with debt situations, and then this was what we did. The first thing, call them, explain to them, it's 600k I'm owing. Explain to them, can I start paying 50k every month? Or you guys agreed that I'll pay 600k at once, and then I don't have the money to pay. Can I pay 50k every month for the next so and so month? Before you know, people will agree. So that's like a plan you can, a strategy you can use.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome,
Mrs. Amanda, for coming into the house.
You
know how it is. We never have enough time to talk about money. I hope you can come back again and again. We're going to keep calling you. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Welcome.
And thank you for paying attention and listening. I do hope that you have learned something from today's episode, and you can just go and be better and use debt to actually grow your income, not necessarily to shalaye or to prove to the other person that you're chilling more than it doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's make better financial decisions. My name is Chinwe Blessing. Thank you very much for being on Lifestyle 360.